the regular meeting of City Council for Monday, December 5th, 2022 to order. Our first order of business is two delegations. We have 2.1. We have Eric Van Soren from the South Peace Mackenzie Trust in attendance via Zoom. And his reason is for an invitation to apply for job creation grants. So welcome, Eric.
Well, Carl, thank you. I'd like to thank you for inviting me to make this presentation. As you mentioned, I'm the trustee of the South Peace Economic Trust. Its full name is actually the British Columbia South Peace Mackenzie Economic Diversification and Stabilization Trust. We shortened it so that it'd be a little easier for the people to deal with. The trust was created by the federal and the provincial governments with an intent to help mitigate the negative impacts of the protection of the southern mountain caribou. This trust has $10 million in it, and our job is to try to disperse that $10 million over a 3-year period, roughly, with the impact or the intent of creating new income earning opportunities within its specified area. And its specified area is within a 100-mile or kilometer radius of Chetwynd, Tumbler Ridge, and Mackenzie. And that's 100 kilometers as the crow flies, as opposed to by road. So the area is larger than you would expect. The purpose of this, of my request, was actually to try to make people aware of the existence of the trust, because what I found in running a lot of these trusts is that just getting the word out is hard to do. And what I often like to say is that it's amazing how hard it is to give away free money if people don't know about it and don't apply. So my hope is to get more applications. So the intent of the trust is to create new income earning opportunities, and that can either be jobs for individuals as employees, or people who start their own businesses, or contractors. And the number or the types of people that can apply is pretty wide ranging as well. Can be individuals, corporations, clubs, a regional district, a trustee of another trust, collections of individuals, associations, municipalities, bands, congregations. So pretty much any entity that plans to create new income earning opportunities. So unlike some trusts, for-profit entities can apply for funding. We do have matching fund requirements so that someone who wants to apply to the trust needs to put in some of their own skin in the game. So sort of the first $50,000, we can provide 3-for-1 matching, but that would mean for a $50,000 project, the applicant would have to come up with $12,500. Beyond that, it's 50-50 matching, and the maximum that can come out of the trust as a general rule would be $250,000. So we have a pretty wide range of amounts we can provide to individuals or entities that are applying. We can also help with skills training. So for instance, if an individual has lost his job but would like to have a different employment opportunity, and that might be somebody who would like to take heavy equipment operator training, for instance, we can provide all of the funding for training, and that could be either to the prospective employer who has identified somebody that they would like to employ, but they're not properly trained yet, or to an individual who understands that in order to do what he wants to do, he needs some training. So that's something we can consider as well. What we cannot consider is assistance to some entity that wants to create unfair competition for somebody else. So if there's already somebody providing a service in an area, it wouldn't be fair to help somebody else go and compete with them. And we can't provide any funding for any entity that wants to do something that is inconsistent with the recovery of the southern mountain caribou. So somebody who wanted to start up a guiding operation to go hunting, obviously, that's not going to work. But beyond that, we can work with anybody who has any idea that might create new income earning opportunities in the specified area that we work for. So some examples, for instance, of things that we've managed to do is in Mackenzie, we helped them to create a new community bike park and a ski hill upgrade. And the intent there was that by helping them do that, creates the jobs that are actually created in the upgrades, but it also helps with tourism. Also in Mackenzie, we helped somebody who realized that there wasn't a taxi service in town. And so we helped him buy a taxi cab, and he'd already done a lot of the work to get the licensing, but he didn't have the money for the cab. So now they have a taxi cab service there, and he expects to be able to expand that quickly because there's a huge demand. And then we also helped the Bear Mountain Nordic Ski Association buy a new groomer because they had a groomer, but it was not reliable. And so by having a new groomer, they'll be able to increase the usage of their area, and they'll actually be able to sponsor competitions, and that will bring in tourism and create incremental learning opportunities, not just for the ski hill, but for the providers of food and beverage and tourism accommodations. And another one that we've done recently, it's just training, and this was to train individuals to do silk painting, and this was something that is going to be able to help people that may be at home and can't leave home to get employment, that they can get employment by learning how to do something that they would then be able to sell in markets. So it gives you an idea of just how wide a range of things that we can do. Other things that we're considering right now is there's an individual who wants to get into commercial farming, and that looks like it's something that we'll be able to help with because they need to buy a lot of equipment that's more than they would have just for the kind of farming that they're doing. So what I'm hoping we can do by letting you and your council and anyone listening to this, what I'm hoping is they will then be able to apply to us. There's a website that we have, it's spmtrust.ca, and once a person goes there, they will get there's an application form, there's contact information for me. And what I often encourage people to do is to just phone me if they're not sure about what or whether or not their application might be considered. And that seems to have worked out quite well because we're trying to encourage people that wouldn't normally apply for projects. The application is fairly straightforward, but some people have used grant writers to help them with that, and that seems to be working out really well as well. So that's, I'm allowed 10 minutes. I've got my 10 minutes in, and now I'd be very happy to answer any questions that anybody might have about what we do, why we do it, and how they can apply.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Eric. Definitely educational to learn more about the organization. I've seen the name around a lot, so it was nice to hear a bit more about it. So I'm going to open it up to council if there's any questions. Councillor Parslow.
The trust fund, $10 million needs to be expended in 3 years. Is there, then what happens? Is there going to be a further funding? Because the loss to the region is not just 3 years, it's multi-years.
For now, this is set up as an expenditure trust, and I'm not aware of any intention to add to it. On the other hand, I think it's entirely possible that if we're successful in creating new income earning opportunities with the funds that we disperse, that'll be more of a political side where we'll be relying on the people in the area to push for more funding. For now, I'm just trying to make sure that the funding actually does go out the door because it's sometimes difficult to actually get people to be aware of opportunities. And that's really the intent of this call, is to try to help. The intent is to disperse the funds over 3 years. If we can do it faster, I think that would be fine, because the whole point is to try to create new jobs.
Anything else, Councillor Parslow?
No.
No? Okay. Any other councillors? Anybody else? No. I had a couple, Eric. One, Councillor Parslow just touched on the 3 years. Is this just in year one of that process, or is this?
Yeah, the trust has only been active for a few months now.
Okay.
So we've just started. We've already managed to emit about $750,000, and I've got another few $100,000 in process of being considered.
Okay. And then I know the purpose of this is to create employment and some sustainability for the future, but like on example, the one that was built in Mackenzie, the flow track under construction, is that something that's going to maintain employment long term, or is that just it's short term? It gives some employment, or?
Well, it's partially the long term employment because it's a ski hill upgrade as well. So that means by upgrading it, there's new jobs being created there. There's the spin-off jobs that are expected to, and there's also an employment retention and attraction aspect too, because in a lot of smaller communities, if there isn't anything for people to do, it's hard to convince your family that they want to go there.
Yeah.
And so something like this really helps in employee attraction and retention.
Yeah, I agree. So, all right. Well, thank you for your time, Eric. I appreciate it, and definitely help getting this out. What the initiative is about, and so thank you.
Great, and thank you for listening to me. And anything that you can do to let your residents and any friends, network, anybody. Just let them know, because it's not the sort of thing that I can advertise on national TV. So I have to rely on the local people, word of mouth for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of great organizations that could definitely benefit from something like this. So we'll definitely do our best to help get it out. So
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, our next order of business is 2.2. We have Connie Baunick from McBride, BC with the SPCA in attendance for the renewal proposal for the service provider for the animal control and kennel services in Dawson Creek. Oh, sorry, it's Corey. Checked my eyes this morning. She's just joining, Joe? Oh, okay. Okay. Good morning, Corey. Can you hear me?
I can. Good
Okay.
morning.
Morning. Welcome.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good, good. Welcome to our to council. So, yeah, the floor is yours to present. So,
Excellent. I was just going to say, I'm not sure if the view was going to be changing to include the counselors as well, just in case there, or Mr. Dober, I believe, will you be letting me know if there's other questions or?
yeah, at the end when there's questions, we'll know, and then as they get queued in, the camera switches over to them.
Oh,
so,
excellent. Yeah. Wow. Wonderful age of technology
Yeah.
that we're in. So that's fantastic. I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Corey Bonnick. I work with the BC SPCA, and I am our manager of municipal animal services. So anything to do with the BC SPCA and our municipal partnerships is something that I work on. So it'll be things like, preparing the renewal proposals, the contracts, working on any issues that either side might see coming up. And then I also have a background in animal control. So I help support all of our animal control officers or ACOs across the province, including those at our South Peace location. I'm actually flying up there in about a week and a half for a couple weeks to support the branch, which will be very exciting because I'm from the prairies and I'm in Vancouver, so it'll be interesting to be back in the cold. Yes, like I said, anything sort of to do with municipalities and our organization is something that I handle. And I just wanted to give a little bit of background on how our organization is approaching some of these municipal contracts. So I know that we've partnered with Dawson Creek for a very long time. Traditionally in the past, our contracts and pricing and things like that was something that was sort of, done off the side of someone's desk, usually our CEO or someone else. And recently we've been seeing that we want to make sure that there is a little bit more attention and support to these partnerships because they're just so important. And so my role was created early in 2021. With that, what we've done is sort of changed our analysis around the pricing for our contracts, which is why there has been a sizable increase, which we're seeing quite a bit across the board and around the province. We're also working on, or have completed now, but we're working on over the summer, a new contract template that we've been using to present to municipalities and that I have ready for Dawson Creek as well. Although our contract actually is quite good that we currently have. So I just wanted to let Mayor and Council know ahead of time that if we do go forward, that it doesn't have to be our template. It can be one from the that we currently have. So the way that we've been working on our pricing is essentially we take an allocation approach. And when we're looking at the cost to allocate, it's simply to do with the animals that are coming into our care as strays. So that could be animals that are brought in by one of our animal control officers or animals that are brought in by members of the public or perhaps found by a landlord or anything like that, injured on the side of the road. So that would be our animal care and control staff, spay and neuter for the animals afterwards, and veterinary care during the stray period, transportation, of course, the animal and operational supplies. So in this case, that does include the animal control officer supplies as well. But generally, that would be things like food, bedding, replacements if a cage gets worn out or something like that. Although we try to keep that quite low because we do get quite a few donations from members of the public, which is amazing and very much appreciated. And then we have our premises, just to run the building and communications, which again, in the case of ACOs, it's a little bit higher just because it essentially factors in, the cell phone, having the laptops, and we also implemented a lone worker device earlier this year, just to make sure that the officers are safe on the road. And part of the uniform is also a vest as well, just as another layer of PPE for the officers. You'll notice there that we also look at projected revenues just to sort of counterbalance out the expenses. So I essentially take what is statistically the average amount of animals that are not redeemed, and apply our average adoption fee to that, along with impound and service fees based on Dawson Creek's actual average impound and service fees, and then the license fees as well, just to sort of, again, balance out what that those expenses would be. Some questions that some of the other municipalities have asked when we've presented them with this information is, how do we know that it's just our animals that are maybe being worked into this, or because sometimes it's often the case that outlying areas don't have bylaws, and often we're taking in some of those animals, not all of them, of course, but some of them under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, which is stating that if an animal is abandoned, that we are to take it in. So when we're working on this analysis with all of our animals that come in, we have the found location. And I've sort of shared some of that, those statistics with the city staff, where they can see very clearly, this animal came into, from Dawson Creek into our branch. I did go ahead and present also as well an intake report. Staff were just curious as to what the intake was like over the past 5 years. So you can see that it stayed fairly similar, with a bit of a drop over 2020, a jump in 2021, and then 2022. This is year to date, so I'm expecting that it will go up a little bit before the end of the year. Probably not quite as high as 2021, but still fairly close. And then also, just because we are providing animal control services to the city as well, I also prepared a dispatch report, which is our from the beginning of this calendar year. And you can see that we're actually fairly busy. This is one of our busier contracts for sure. So we have 1.8 FTE animal control officers, and you can see that they're attending approximately 72 files per month. And of course, that will vary a little bit. In the summertime, it tends to be higher, but it's, again, fairly busy team up there in Dawson Creek as well. I did want to add too that one of the things that we're very pleased about is that the new animal responsibility bylaw is so great. We do actually use that as an example when we're working with other municipalities. So I just want to let you know our appreciation for that, because it does make our job a lot easier when we're working as animal control in the community. And I think it shows that Dawson Creek really cares about the animals that are there. Lastly, I did have an amending agreement. So the staff and I discussed the fact that, these numbers were presented fairly close to the end of the renewal period. That was just because we've been working so much over this past 6 months to update our contract template, work on our analysis and things like that. So our intention wasn't to put any pressure on the municipality to agree to this. In fact, we are open to a bit of back and forth that I could present to my COO, because I do know it's a sizable increase. So we do have an addendum for an additional 3 months, just to cover the budget period, where we're happy to provide services at the current rate. And some municipalities have requested a bit of a step increase, just to make things a little bit easier on them for their budget. So that is an option, absolutely, that I'd be happy to take from the municipality and present to my team as well. So I think that's most of the information that I have provided ahead of time in the package. I don't know if there's any questions or anything that I can maybe attempt to answer.
Okay, thank you, Corey. I will open this up to council. Councillor Parslow.
Well, it is a massive increase, and I would like to hear some justification from you for the increase.
Absolutely. So part of the big cost increase has been simply the increase in the cost of veterinary care over the last couple of years too. I'm not sure how many of you are pet owners, but there is a big increase in that. But part of it is that the analysis that we were providing or doing before for our contracts, especially this one, I think was last renewed in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been 2017. Wasn't as accurate as something like this. I don't know if they were actually taking proper numbers. I did make a request to our financial department to provide some finance reports. So as soon as those are ready, I can submit them to mayor and council as well. So everything that we've done for our analysis, we try to be fully transparent, just because we know that municipalities need to be able to justify these increases to their citizens and taxpayers. So we'll be able to show you, like, these are our real costs of how much that this contract is costing us at the branch. And the only other additional thing would be the 15% administration fee, which essentially goes towards any of the services that our provincial office offers to support our branch as well. So we absolutely can provide all of those figures. We're more than happy to do it. It's all based on real numbers.
Thank you. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Corey, for taking the time to meet with us today. You answered my question with respect to the admin fees. I do have another question regarding the dispatch report. It states the South Peace BC SPCA Animal Center receives 72% of the center's total annual animals through Dawson Creek Animal Service. So the other 28%, I would presume, are coming from the surrounding areas, Pouce Coupe, Area D. What's your service catchment?
Yeah, so I actually